Hi, I'm Patrick of Rambo Bikes. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the controller on your motor of your Rambo bike. The tools you will need to change the controller on your motor are a Phillips head screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, a crank puller, a motor tool, both of these which you can get from us. You'll also need an 8mm Allen key, a 4mm Allen key, a 5mm Allen key, a T25 torque wrench, and a T20 torque wrench. When doing any work on your bike, especially on the drivetrain or the motor, you'll want to make sure to take the battery off your bike. For this fix, you'll also need to have your rear wheel removed. If you don't know how to do that, you can check out our other video here on removing your rear tire. First thing to access the controller is you're going to take the screws off the motor plates on both sides of the bike. Using your 8mm Allen key, you can remove the bolt on your crank arm that attaches it to the bike. You can use the pedal and the crank arm as leverage. Next, you're going to need to use your crank puller to be able to remove the crank arm off the bike. To do this, you thread the black piece into the crank arm right where you remove the bolt from. You can also move the wrench forward onto the black piece to tighten it down. Once you've got that piece tightened in all the way, you're going to want to take the silver end and tighten it in as far as it will go. You will start to feel some resistance against the crank arm. It's a good thing, just keep going and the crank arm will eventually come right off. Next, using your 5mm Allen wrench, you're going to want to take out the bolts that hold the sprocket onto the bike here. You might not have to remove your motor to be able to do this. If you have all the wires here and you can pull them all out without the motor blocking any of them, you can just keep the motor in here. But we're going to show you how to take the motor out just in case some wires are caught. So to get the motor out, you're going to want to repeat what you did on the right side of the bike and removing the crank arm. Use your 8mm Allen key to remove the crank bolt, and then use the crank puller in the same way. Next, you're going to need the motor tool. There are two lock rings on the left side of the bike. One side is for the first lock ring, and this other side is for the second one. These are both threaded normally, although the pedal on this side is threaded reverse. You turn these counterclockwise to remove them. There are 3 torque screws holding this motor bracket in place. This is to make sure the motor doesn't move around inside the frame. Using the T20 torque wrench and the T25, you want to remove all 3 of these bolts. Once you've taken the bolts out, you can just remove the bracket and set it to the side. The motor should be able to just slide out to the right side of the bike. Once you've done that, you're going to want to remove this plastic plate when you're trying to pull it off, so just take it off and set that aside as well. Using your 4mm Allen key, you want to loosen the 3 bolts. This is the controller. Once you've got those bolts taken out, you're going to want to unplug the cables. The speed sensor cable on the back side is threaded, and once you unscrew it, you just pull it right apart. You also have the main wiring harness plug here, and then here you have your leads that go to the battery, and these also just pull straight out. So sometimes it's easier to do this with the motor on a workbench, so you can just pull it straight out now that it's all unplugged. For this, we're just going to keep it in the bike for a place to hold it. So once you've unscrewed those bolts and you got all the wires unplugged, you can just pull on the controller and it should open up. Inside there are 5 different wires, the green, the blue, and the yellow ones, and these, again, you just pull straight out to take apart. There's also one with a little black clip, and this you need to press down on the little clip part and then it will pull apart. The last cable is actually siliconed in, so using a screwdriver you can just tear off some of the silicone there, and then there's another little lever that you press to pull it out. I just use a flathead screwdriver just to push up on the lever and then pull straight out with the controller. After I've removed some of the silicone, it normally pulls right out. After you've done this, you're going to want to put the wires back together, green to green, blue to blue, yellow to yellow. You want to pay attention to how you're connecting these cables and which ones you connect first. So when you put the controller back on, it sits tightly and the cables aren't all bunched together. You see here, if you have some cables sticking out, you can just push them in So it should fit nicely. After you've done that, you can replace the bolts using your 4mm Allen wrench. You can then reconnect the speed sensor as well as the motor to the wiring harness and the battery leads. Make sure to do black to black and red to red. The harness also has arrows on it that you can line up to make sure all the pins are aligned. After this, you can replace the plastic plate and put all the little screws back in. You don't want to tighten these down too far because the plastic can crack if you tighten them too hard. You can then start putting your wires back in. And after that, you can replace the motor bracket as well as the 3 bolts holding it on. You want to tighten these down all the way and check all of them twice to make sure they're tightened in after you do the other ones. After that, you can put the lock ring back on. The first one is one with 4 indentations on the sides, and you're also going to want to use the motor tool to tighten these all the way down. Then you can replace the second lock ring, also tightening this one all the way down using the other side of the motor tool. After you've got the lock rings on, you can replace the motor plate here using the 3 small screws and a Phillips screwdriver. You want to make sure that you grab your left crank to put back on the left side. To put this back on, you just slide the crank arm onto the spindle and replace the crank bolt. Again, you can use the crank arm and the pedal as leverage to tighten this down all the way. Then you can repeat the same steps on the right side of the bike, replacing the motor plate. And after you get the motor plate back on, you can also replace the sprocket using your 5mm Allen wrench. After that, you can put the right crank arm back on. You want to make sure this is facing the opposite way of your left crank arm, otherwise riding may be rather difficult. And that was how you replace the controller on the motor of your Rambo bike. If you have any questions, you can call our office at 952-283-0777. And you can also check out our website, rambobikes.com.